Welcome back. We're discussing the future of insurance in Africa on today's show. And ahead of the break, our discussion revealed that yes, there is vast potential and need because of how closely linked economy is with insurance. And we take this further now with Dion de Klerk, who's Standard Bank's head of Africa regions for insurance and asset management. Dion, thanks so much for joining us. So you say that insurance is a critical enabler of economic development. Walk us through what you mean exactly by that.
Thanks. Morning, Brian. Nice to be here. Yeah, I think we need to look at it slightly differently. I do believe that insurance has a role to play in economic development, and I think it needs to be aligned to what people are doing on a day-to-day basis, rather than coming at it from a traditional perspective. So again, I guess that from my point of view, I've been in the fortunate position that half of my career roughly has been spent at Liberty in South Africa from an insurance perspective, and the other half has been spent at the bank. And most of that time was in Africa. And I think that as you immerse yourself in the African economies, you realize very quickly every country is different, and different things drive different people. And the traditional view of insurance that is normally sort of brought into the African markets from South Africa or from Europe doesn't always resonate with the way people do things. And I think that there's been a period of time where I think some trust issues have caused people not to take up insurance in the traditional way. I think traditional distribution channels are perhaps falling behind a little bit. You know, the traditional view of there's a product that needs to go through a channel and penetrate a certain segment, I think almost starts missing the point. I mean, it's got its place up to a point in time, but people operate differently in these markets. So alongside our traditional businesses, we've been looking at incubating some engagement platforms that give us a slightly different insight into how people think about the risks that they run, and how they like to engage. You know, so there are many barriers at this stage to entry in insurance in Africa, and I think that we need to take that step back and engage people in terms of where they are. But there's no doubt that as economic growth prevails across the continent, and I think that, again, there is a good growth story in Africa. I mean, it's a very young population, 1 billion people, 60% of them are under the age of 25. They're very tech savvy. And you have to ask yourself the question, where will innovation and digital insurance become really, really exciting from a growth point of view in Africa, and that's pretty much where we're focusing alongside our traditional business.
Yeah, because Dion, I've spoken a lot about penetration rates in Africa and using it to exemplify the vast opportunity on the continent for insurers. But you've suggested in a recent article that we need to move beyond that. The focus needs to go beyond that. And I think you're highlighting it there subtly in how you answered my first question, that we need to start looking at what people need. You know, Africa isn't this homogenous area where it's a one size fits all. And I think you're kind of speaking to some kind of tech-enabled ecosystem, right?
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely right. And I think so just on the penetration stats, I think that 3% is probably generous. I think there are a couple of countries that are sitting quite high. So South Africa, I think, is sitting at about 12. Namibia and Lesotho are quite close to South Africa. So there the penetration rates are a bit higher. But then you find some other very populous countries that are sitting below 1%. And these countries have very, very large populations of people. And as I said earlier, the young generation, very prevalent in those economies. Now, yes, there's the issue of poverty and affordability and economic headwinds in these countries. But ultimately, if you really want to get to the size of the populations that we're talking about here, it's very difficult to do that through traditional insurance and traditional distributions. You can't get to millions of people through a call center. You can't get to millions of people through financial advisors. So you're going to ask yourself, how are you going to get to millions of people? And that's where the interesting thing comes in, because that's where we need to work out what people do on a day-to-day basis with their digital assets. Where are they? What are they doing digitally? Because that's where we need to go and meet them. And that's sort of where I believe that there's quite a big opportunity for us going forward.
So Dion, how are you then doing that? Do you have some examples to share with us?
Yeah, we've as I alluded to earlier, we've incubated a few of these engagement platforms over the last few years alongside our traditional business. I don't want to suggest that our traditional business is insignificant or not important or whatever. It obviously is, because it's competitive in the markets. But for a smallish part of the population, the higher end part of the population. So some of these engagement platforms that we've incubated give us some really nice insights. I'll give you one or two examples quickly. The first thing that we started in about 2017, I think it was focusing on financial literacy. I think that we all know that pure financial literacy would also help to improve insurance penetration on the continent. And it's not only insurance penetration, it's financial inclusion generally. So we run what we call financial fitness academies, which are very structured, sort of almost self-directed financial planning sessions, where we get up to 500 people in a seminar, and we've got a very organized process. And we ask them to sit and reflect on their own circumstances in terms of how they make their money, how they spend their money, how they save and invest, and how they give. And then we also talk to them about how they protect all of that. And we've developed alongside that a companion solution, a companion platform that basically enables people then to start utilizing the financial tools and information and modules that we've developed over a period of time to think about how they can improve their own lives through that lens. And of course, the data and the insights that we get put us in a position to then start a journey with somebody. And whether you've got very little money or whether you've got lots of money, everybody's got dreams and aspirations. It's not just targeting a certain segment or wherever. So these financial fitness academies are there across the board for everybody, and therefore the information that comes through from a digital perspective becomes very rich information for us to understand on a personalized basis how we then need to interact with each individual. Because as I said before, we can't just rely on call centers or traditional distribution to now start doing this. So this is where AI and generative AI and real digital solutions come into play, where it's possible to self-fulfill. So if you want to open a bank account or get a loan or relook at all the mortgage rates in the market, etc., or take out a life policy, or get some insurance for the new factory that you're starting. It's important that those solutions start surfacing themselves digitally in a platform like that. So financial fitness is becoming one of those businesses for us that both makes impact from a financial literacy perspective, but it's also got a commercial model behind it, because we do fulfill solutions for people and underneath, because that's how we help them to grow. So financial fitness, we run that across the continent. We covered about 130,000 people last year, and we've been very successful in fulfilling some of these product solutions. But I see that as the start, because, as I said at the beginning, the traditional view of saying you've got a product that goes through a channel into a segment, the mindset associated with that often is that once you've made the sale, you can walk away because the job's done. Whereas in our ecosystem that we're creating with financial fitness, we're actually there to walk a path with a client 10 years, 20 years, however long it takes, and think about how many potential and solutions and opportunities there will be along that path if we do it properly.
Right, and
because it becomes a two-way street, and it becomes interactive on a personalized basis.
Absolutely, and that also just speaking to efforts, or great deal of efforts being made to change the perception around insurance as well, I'm sure, so that it doesn't become this grudge purchase, that it sits as part of your financial health in your planning. Dion, unfortunately, we're out of time, so let's leave it there for today. Dion de Klerk is Standard Bank's head of Africa Regions for Insurance and Asset Management. And let's see what you have to say now. We chatted to a few South Africans to find out if they still view insurance as a grudge purchase. Let's take a look.
No, I don't think it's a grudge purchase because it's something that will definitely benefit you along your life, along the line. And with the life that we're currently living in, we definitely need insurance.
Because of cost of living, most people cannot afford to pay insurance on a basis, but it helps. And if anything comes up, maybe get sick for medical care insurances, or maybe your house burns down or something happens, or you can get like a house insurance to fix that too. Because if it happens that your house burns down and when have insurance, then you have to start like from the start, like from fresh start. And remember, you don't have money to pay for all of that. So it helps.
Ngicabanga ukuthi umshwalense kuphoqelekile ukuthi ube nawo ngoba ayikho into ongayenza ngaphandle komshwalense. Umshwalense esikhathini samanje iyona nto ekusizayo ezintweni eziningi ngoba ukufa kuvela ngalesikhathi ungenalutho. Kanti mawubhadala umshwalense uyakwazi ukukulekelela lapha nalapha. Yabona. So ke ngaleyo ndlela umshwalense yona into ephoqelekile ukuthi ube nayo uthanda ungathandi.
In my opinion, I feel like it's a rip off because when you try and claim for whatever reason, you would be told that no, we're not covering that, but it was not in blue, in black and white. Yeah, so I don't think insurance is it's beneficial in any way.
And that brings us to the end of this episode of Insights from Africa. But if you want more content like this, or if you want to re-watch any of the discussions we've had on the show, you can find them on our YouTube channel. And if you follow us on social media, you can stay up to date with all our content. So be sure to find us on X, TikTok and LinkedIn. So from me, Bronwyn Seaborn, and the rest of the team, it's goodbye for now. Insights from Africa is brought to you in partnership with Standard Bank.